Welcome. This is the kickoff event for the Cleveland chapter of the Miro user community or user group. And so the whole acronym is MUG. I don't know if you have a coffee mug or you're going to mug somebody, but it's just kind of a tradition within Miro. And so we wanted to spend a few minutes in Zoom making sure that you have some grounding in Miro before we throw you onto the board and have you be interactive with us. And so you should be able to see my screen. Is that correct? Okay, so I'm on the Miro board sharing my screen, and in the top right corner, there's this little note. And when you get on into the board, it's going to be pinned open, which has the agenda. And if for some reason you get kicked out of the Zoom room, which only if you have like an intermittent internet or something, you shouldn't need it. But if you need to get back into Zoom from the Miro board, you should be able to do that. And then because we have some brand newbies, we have a cheat sheet for you on navigation. And if you need to get back to that, you can always get to it through that notes. And so here on the agenda, we have our intro, we have a few icebreakers, and then we wanted to just demonstrate different ways that you would have the content of a meeting through a slide deck or video or reference documents. And then the interactive part of this session is 3 examples of brainstorming when you will be interacting with the board and selecting next steps. And we have 3 examples of that. Time for questions, and then feedback on the event, and an opportunity to capture any recommended resources that you know about that we can store for the chapter, and then think about what next events we want to offer or what you would like to see us offer. So again, that's this X. We'll get rid of the notes, and if you need to see them, you just click that again. So if we wanted to just show you the macro view of what we have here, which is it's an infinite whiteboard, and you can put a lot of information on here. We're actually using just a fraction of what's available to us. And so at the top, we have our purpose.
And we kind of went with a mind map or a framework of what we're covering today. So each of those lines points to a topic we're covering, and there's a frame for each of the topics that makes that big long line that you saw. So we're going to start at the top of that line and move down in the board in a linear way.
Yeah. And so this is the kickoff event for the Cleveland chapter. And we want to teach key functions in Miro, and we are trying to limit what we demonstrate to you with what's available in the free version, which gives you 3 boards and some pretty good functionality. And along the way, we'll show you some ideas for keeping meetings interactive and a way to capture ideas and plans, right? And launch. So that's another version of the agenda, which we just saw in the notes part. And then I have a 2 less than 3-minute video to show you on navigating, and then we're going to send you onto the board.
In this video, we'll cover everything you need to know about navigating around a board and end with some final techniques that will make navigation really simple. There are 2 main navigation modes, mouse and trackpad, with touchscreen also being available for touch devices like smartphones and tablets. The correct mode should be detected automatically for you, but if it's not, you can manually switch in the board settings. Using a trackpad is fairly natural for most users. Move through the board by sliding 2 fingers across the trackpad and zoom in and out through pinching. If you want a bit more control when zooming, you can hold Command or Control and slide your 2 fingers across the trackpad. For a reminder of the available gestures, you can again go to the board settings. Now let's talk about mouse navigation. When using a mouse, find a blank area of the board and click and hold the left mouse button and drag. Notice that the cursor changes to a hand. We'll talk about that later. The same gesture is used when you'd like to move objects around the board. Click and hold the left mouse button and drag. Sometimes, though, you'll want to navigate around the board without changing anything in it. For that, we'll use this icon at the top of your toolbar to switch to the hand tool. This is a sort of view-only mode where you can grab anywhere on the board without affecting content. To switch back to the select tool, click the button again. The easiest way to switch between the select and the hand tools is to hold spacebar on your keyboard. This will enable the hand tool until you release the spacebar. Now that we've covered the basics, let's quickly go through some final techniques with frames, zooming, and the map to really make navigating easy. If a board contains frames, you can access the frames list to quickly move through different sections of the board. Frames become particularly important when you're dealing with a larger board, so taking advantage of them when creating content will pay dividends later on. When it comes to zooming, your current zoom percentage is displayed for you, and if you click it, it will zoom you into 100%. There is another handy option called Fit to Screen as well. This will bring you to a zoom level in which you can see everything in the board. Last but not least is the map. You can toggle the map display by clicking on its icon or pressing M on your keyboard. It can be a great way to get around a board and jump between sections you're working on. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
So now you're almost an expert. So I have one more thing to show you, which is the navigation bar. So you'll see on the left-hand side, we have that pointer that he talked about that becomes either a pointer or a hand. That's pretty much the only thing you need on that navigation bar for this session. And we could talk about other ones if you'd like to, when we get to that question and answer part, but we just don't want to overwhelm you with that. Probably one of the most important things is the undo button. If you know that from any other software, you just want to say, oh, I really don't want that. You might get an extra sticky note or an extra line or something like that. Just remember there's an undo button at the top. And then over here, you have the arrows. Now, once you get onto the board, it's going to either show everybody's cursor on the board, which can be really fun. I've actually been on a Miro board where we had over 1,000 people on the board from around the world, which is incredibly crazy. And so there it was just insane to see all of the cursors. And so you can just toggle that on or off. So here I could see Josie moving around the board or I could turn her off and not see her. And then this next button is where you can actually do reactions. So if you click that, you can see that there will be some different reactions come across on the board, just like, other things. So that's just really for fun. Or there is a raise the hand feature as well, like if you need help, right? Okay. And then we already talked about the notes and the percentage of the board. That's all down in the right hand part. So I just want to pause before so Josie's going to put the link to the Miro board in the chat, but does anybody have any questions at this point?
What's the primary purpose, Diana? Is it to collaborate? Is it to show flowcharts?
It's almost an infinite answer to that, Suzanne.
Mm-hmm.
Collaboration is definitely a key reason for using Miro, because you can have things that are at the same time where people are working on things at the same time, or you also have people that would prefer to think alone and they can go to the board and contribute on their own time. And so with the time bank, we started with mapping processes, right, of who's doing what. And one of the really nice features is that you can make a comment, which isn't, in this particular workshop, but you can put a comment anywhere on the board. And then I know that I knew Jason had a question about that part of the process. If that makes sense. So it makes it very easy to be able to then communicate, even though we're not actually on the board at the same time.
So it's kind of like Google Docs, but this is a diagram as opposed to narrative.
Oh, it's way different from Google Doc. Like hopefully you'll see by the end of the session today.
But it is in a sense where you can see the other people in the document with you and see what they're working on.
Right.
And which I do appreciate about Google Docs, because then like you can see what Diana's typing versus Susan versus Adriana, like in the same document. So yeah, it's in real time.
Right. Yeah, and I find Google Docs very disconcerting that way if everybody's typing at the same time.
Paste it again. It should go open in your browser. And then there is a really neat feature, Diana just used it, where if you've got people floating all around your board, but you want them to come to you, you can bring them to you, and the people on the board will see what your screen sees.
So what we have underneath, it's our first chance. Oh my gosh, where are the pins?
They are in there. They're just not displaying on your screen for some reason.
Okay. So we have 4 icebreakers, one after another. This first one is where you can select a pin, although it's not showing on my board, on my screen, and an emoji, and put it on the world where you are. Now we're going to be pretty clustered around Philadelphia for this, but and again, you can zoom in to find an emoji that represents you if you want.
How are people like you getting your name there? Because I see how I got a comment there, but how did you actually get your name?
Because I have an account with Miro, right? So you can get a free account, which gives you 3 boards that you can work on.
So I think, Susan, maybe to answer your question, remember at the top center of the board, there's that hide and show the cursors. And then there's the reaction button. And then there's like Diana's face on hers. But instead of Diana's face, you're going to see your icon that's been given to you. So if you hover your mouse on there, it might show like you are guest so-and-so.
Okay, so we got everybody's icon. So the next one is another simple move a dot. And so instead of an emoji, we have some dots on the right-hand side.
Can you bring us to you?
Okay. And so the first, like the line with the yellow is like you can put your dot. We have definitely some people here which says it's your first Miro experience. And then some of you might be very close to the pink on the bottom that says, I don't even know how I would use Miro in my life. And others, like Brian, you might have at least an idea that somebody wants you to work with this with your consulting.
Another thing I thought of, and Suzanne, this might be for you. Remember in the, we talked about, I think we talked about the pointer versus a hand.
Right.
So if you're using a hand still, the hand will not pick up a dot and move it. So you can try hitting the V button, V for victory, to switch to the pointer to then point on a thing and drag it over.
Okay, I'm gonna move down to the next one. It's the same sort of thing where you move a dot and let us know how you're feeling. So the next one is going to test you a little bit more. Again, we're trying to ease you in to using Miro. And this is where you have a chance to grab a sticky note, and you can, again, you can grab and move it. If you double click it, you should be able to write something on it. So if you have a goal for today. So now we'll just move into what would be a normal meeting where you, so again, you have some sort of icebreaker, and then here is a frame that we have put a PowerPoint deck into. And so if I select the PowerPoint, and so this would be if you want to look at my Zoom screen that I'm sharing, or you could look at this on your own screen. But if you see my screen, you could see there is a arrow which allows me to flip through the PowerPoint slides.
So to get that menu to appear, click anywhere on the slide itself, which it should appear as just a big yellow square with text on it.
What am I supposed to do?
And then a menu will appear at the top with the arrows to go back and forth.
To flip the pages.
Yeah. There is a thing that looks like several pieces of paper in a row. I don't recommend touching that, but I know we have really exploratory people in this group today. That button is what allowed us to like extract each individual slide from that file that you can scroll through or flip through. So it puts each slide next to each other, and you can just like read and like skim going down the line instead of flipping through the document on that frame. So depending on how many slides you have or what your goal is for your meeting, how you want to navigate through, or how, for example, if Diana wanted to make sure we were following her, she could bring everyone to her, and then she could go from slide to slide to slide, sliding down that row of slides. But if she said, oh, you guys just skim on your own time, then she would just recommend that we as individuals go to that first place and just flip through at our leisure. So
you can
there's
bookmark. You can bookmark different pages as well on the slide. So the meat of this one is that so if you were looking at my either looking at these slides or looking at my Zoom sharing the screen, we've done this assessing the participants. So we've gotten you all to be able to do some basic functionality, and then the action planning. So I guess this comes back to like, why would you have a meeting in the first place, right? It's not just to take up people's time. You're normally trying to move forward with some challenge or opportunity. And so after the information is presented, you would try to identify ideas around that topic or problem, right? And so the more ideas that you have, the more chances you have to solve this. But at some point, you have to narrow down the ideas and say, well, these are going to have more possible success than those, and you kind of narrow. Now, that's when you might be refining the problem, getting more clarity around the problem, and then you go through another cycle of ideation or brainstorming, and then again culling through all those ideas to narrow down like what would we really want to do from this. So one of the tricks about really getting some great ideas is being comfortable staying in that ideation phase longer, and also going through this cycle multiple times. And this slide here shows there's this thing called the M curve. And when you first start to have ideas, you might have like a burst and you have like, oh, look at all these ideas. And then you go, well, that's all I can really think about. And you feel like I'm done, right? But along this way, you might have certain stimulants that would say, well, what if we were in China? What if we were on our last dime? Or what if we had $1 million? Like you would have some sort of a question that would break through your thinking to open up new ideas, which normally that second cycle will have more ideas. And also, again, you could go through this multiple times, but you'll see that the ideas get to be more creative or innovative, and then you get these breakthrough thoughts. But you just have to be patient with yourself to allow these ideas, because if you start taking action after like the first ideas, it might be the same old thing. So we're going to have three actions, three examples that we'll do together. And that is the mind map, a random word, which is the stimulant, and then some small group ideas. And then when we go to select examples, we have three examples to show you as well. One's the value versus effort matrix, and then a similar approach, but it's more visual, and an example of how you could sprint. And then at the end, we will do a reflection where you can ask questions. We'll try to answer as many as you can throw at us. And then if you have resources, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to share those with the group and provide some feedback for what we should do next. Like Josie and I have signed up to be chapter leaders. So we'll be doing some sort of a workshop each quarter at least. And so if you have ideas, for what you'd like to learn, we'll be willing to put that on.
Why Cleveland, Diana?
Well, Josie, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I actually live in Oberlin, Ohio, which is about 45 minutes outside of Cleveland. And Diana will be moving to Ohio probably sometime in the future. So we figured we'd just
Get started there.
Start here, yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter where anybody's from. You can be part of any chapter. So it's more semantics. And there may be times when we do in-person meetings as well. But for now, when they're virtual, it just doesn't matter, right?
Well, downtown Cleveland's beautiful, so that'd be a good place to meet.
Yeah. So the next example for content is the video that we showed you at the start, which you can embed the basically it's the iframe text if you ever go to YouTube and you want to share that video. And then you can upload a document, which is pretty simple. It's just upload and you find it and it comes onto the board. So this so we thought, since we're doing a workshop about workshops or meetings, we found this one reference and the citation is there on the bottom. The same thing is true where you can click on the document and flip through the pages, again, on your own time. I find this to be really helpful when Susan Gorvet and I were collaborating to create a training course for doing audits remotely. We were able to put all the reference documents on the board so that you didn't have to go chase emails, you didn't have to go look in a folder, you could just go back to that and check. So at this point, Josie's going to unhide our mind map so you can keep things secret until you want. And I'll bring everybody here.
So yeah, we figured we'd start with something that we've probably all experienced at some point in our lives, working in an office with other people. what are some common office problems that you have when you share a workspace with someone? And yes, pandemic current life, you can count your coworkers of your pets, your children, your spouses.
And so when you click, or if you hover, okay, Josie, where's, is
Is
this
it
locked?
maybe it is. If you hover over the so let's not use post-it notes for this because this actually is a built-in thing. If you hover over the common office problems bubble in the center, at the two ends, there's a plus sign. And if you click that plus sign, it gives you a new little arm where you can type. But that little box where you type, you'll need to double click in that to get a cursor to be able to type. If you're typing in one of the arms and you hit enter, you get a new arm right underneath.
Hey, Diana,
Yep.
to get to the mind map in the first place, was that a special function of Miro, or was that like where would you have clicked to get to the mind map?
So if you go to the Zoom window, I'll show you that on the
The templates.
template. And you just look, there are hundreds of templates. And you click here, and then you just say use, and it'll place it on the board for you where it thinks you want it, and you just move it to wherever you want it. So this, Brian, when you're thinking about using this in your meeting, you would be able to find out like what template would work for that particular meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to demonstrate a couple other things too. So maybe we should move on. We only have 15 minutes left.
Okay. So the only point on this is you can move your pieces to group. You can move them from one arm to another. So again, you can brainstorm, and then you could see your themes and rearrange, and it's really flexible and a lot of fun. The next one, if you want to unhide Joe's, would be when you think you don't have any more ideas. This is an example of an activator or a stimulator. And in this example, we won't have you like actually do it, but let's say when we were thinking about the office problems and we thought, oh, we have all the ideas that we have out of our head, then we could come over here. And in this example, they put the word red. And the question is, how could I be happier in my work? And with the color red, you just brainstorm like, what does the color red make me think about? And so they had fire engine, flower loves, it's spicy. So again, just has nothing to do with being happier in your work yet, but it's just brainstorming red. And then you make the connection back to the initial question.
That's really cool.
Right? And so when you get stuck, this is a way to help get unstuck. And then the next part we have here is...
I think I might have people following me at the moment.
Okay. So I just bring everybody over to this one. So we thought, what if we thought about family, or like, where should we go on a vacation? But then we thought, well, we'd all be limited by our own budget. So we changed the question to be, where should we hold our next company retreat with an unlimited budget, which would allow people to think about or dream of where you would really like to go. And this board, each group is close, and then you would do themes. So for us, so this was something, Natalie, we were thinking of using breakout rooms, but this Zoom doesn't have the breakout rooms, but you could.
I'm able to do breakout rooms.
Oh, you can?
As the host, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So then.
Well, Diana, let me stop you there because of our limited time, I think we should just show this and then move on to the other pieces so we make sure we cover everything.
Okay. So the piece about this is that we could do the breakout rooms and put you into rooms, and then you would click on the board to go to a special part of the Miro board to do your brainstorming about where would you and one other person want to go, and then you would come back and see what are the themes that all the groups came up with. Were they, did people want to go on a cruise? Did they want to go hiking? Did they want to stay indoors at a spa? Like what were the themes? But it's nice with Miro that you can send people off to different parts of the board and do small group work and then come back. Okay. So then if we move to the ranking, so it's time to unhide this one. So we thought it's kind of a question that we've been fussing with the some of the volunteer work that I do about getting people to increase participation in events. And so Josie and I did the brainstorming already and put some ideas on sticky notes. And so we want you to kind of guess, like, would we do it now? Would we do it next? Do it if or when there's time, or like, don't do that. And this would be one of the convergent types of activities where you would take all those ideas and start to narrow it down. So the two axes is how much effort it would take, like low on the left, high on the right, and how much value in like participation or value to the people at the event or for your organization from low to high. Right?
Thank you for putting have mascot dance on the street corner with sign as the highest value of that. Thanks, Rhonda.
Okay, so that's one type of matrix. And the next one is very, very similar, but it's more visual. And so here we didn't want to bore you like with having complex like things you had to actually read on the Post-it notes. We just had 1 through 10. But you could see it's the same type of thing. Is this a goal to do? Is this going to put wind in our sail and really energize us that we should do this soon, right? Is this going to be an anchor to weigh us down? And we should, take pause about that. And where might, some of these might be a risk to take, and we would want to, plan that out. So again, it makes it a bit more interesting, with the pictures. At least that's our thinking on that one. And then this next one is a little different. I'll bring you all to me, where again, you would have, we just copied down the same ideas from how do we get more engagement, just to give you something to think about. But this is what you call a sprint board, where you would have like your backlog. Well, everybody has a backlog, right? It's like, oh my gosh, all these things I've been wanting to do. And so then you start sorting them into must do, should do, and could do. Like, but your must do's get more visibility this way. And then you also are able to move to done for those things, to be able to celebrate, oh my gosh, since the last time we met, we actually finished some things. Like, let's celebrate that. These are the ones that we're doing, and here's what's on deck, to do next.
Oh.
Was that you, Joes?
Nope. I think
it was me. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. So, but it's a good thing to know, Brian, because when you set up your boards for your clients, you want to be able to lock them. So if I move that back here, did it go to the back? Where did it go?
I see it.
You do?
Yeah.
I don't see it on my board. But once you click on something, you'll see this bar at the top and you'll see a little lock button. And so you do want to lock your objects on the board. The trick is you can't lock the Post-it notes because you do want to have people move those. So what you lock and what you unlock is a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning. But then once you get it, you're like, oh yeah. And then occasionally you'll say, oh, I thought that was locked. Right? Okay, so any question on that? And so then the last one that we wanted to demonstrate is the idea of voting. And so on this, we have, I've set it to be just 1 minute. You get 8 votes for which animal you love. And I'm going to go ahead and start the timer.
Yeah, you should get a little thing in the corner in the side that says Diana Baldi has started a voting session, and then you have to press vote now.
And I have all these cute little animals. And so you have eight, it's like America's Got Talent. They give you 10 votes. I'm only giving you 8. You can put all 8 on one animal if that's your favorite, or you can give, 8 animals a vote, but you're still going to leave, I think, 3 in the cold, because I think I have 11 on the board. I clicked that a little too soon. Oh, here's the
Oh yeah,
result.
it zoomed me way out. So the results is on the sidebar, but also if you zoom back in, I can bring people to me.
Okay, go ahead and do that.
If you get back to the frame where those pictures were, it shows the votes right there on the objects themselves, which in this case were photos of cute animals. So
the other feature that I can demonstrate is just how easy it is to get a photo on the Miro board. It's here where you can they integrate with Unsplash, which has free use photos on there.
So yeah, the left-hand bar with the 3 dots, you click on the 3 dots and get where is it? Towards the bottom-ish, it's a black camera icon that says Unsplash next to it. And you can type a keyword of something in there and then select a picture and it'll pop it right into the Miro board for you.
Yeah, if you want to give it a try, pick a photo. Look at that. Looks beautiful.
Whoa.
A donkey. Oh, that's beautiful. The whale.
That owl is a huge one. I'll make it a little smaller to.
So the next part up is just what questions do you have at this point?
So Diana, this is Nancy. If in fact you wanted to use this tool for some kind of a certification process, can you capture each individual's input?
You could. Basically, you would give each person their frame, and then as you select a frame, I can export it.
Okay.
I can export it.
Thank you. Yep.
You can export the whole board as a PDF, or you can export pieces of the board as a PDF.
Thank you.
So like for the training courses that have the certification, I actually make a board up, like when they're doing decide if it's a nonconformance or not.
Right.
They have to put their decision in a grid for me.
Okay.
So I have, a column for each student, and I put a whole bunch of N's and NC's or C's, NC's, and OFI's there. And then, so that way we see if we have consensus on a decision or not,
Okay.
right?
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are you able to see, we have a couple frames down towards the bottom that evaluate the meeting. If you want to leave a sticky note about some things from today's session, and below that is another little mind map diagram with some resources and links for you. And if we did have any Miro experts on here besides ourselves, we invite you to add something there if there's something you found helpful as you got to know Miro.
I do have one question. I'm sorry,
Sure.
Dan, but you can't see what I do because I'm a guest. If you're using students with this tool, how do you assign their names?
Well, if they have an account,
But if they don't?
so they could set up a free account.
Okay.
But when they're invited into a board as a guest, it's still going to say
Guest.
Guest explorer, guest whatever. So what I've done is have a board where they actually upload their photo and put their name, and then as they do the work, they're coming back to their name. There's always a name like on the board for their work.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So we're at the 504, but you will have access to the board at some point after the meeting. We'll make it view only, so you won't be able to come in and like pad the votes or accidentally move things around accidentally, but you can come back and see the work. And that's really helpful if you have a meeting where you have people who think in their head and they're not somebody who has an answer right away and they want to have some thought behind it, that they can still contribute, right? Or you could give them access to the board ahead of time so that they can do their thinking ahead and then be, putting their hands into the mix with the group. So so on the board, we have put some resources. There is an article from Miro on remote meetings specifically. There are hundreds and hundreds of templates, and there's a Miro user community. And so if you create a template, you can upload, you could suggest it to the community, and then you can see how many people are using that template. You could kind of get like emotional points on that. Like you see, oh, some people really love this work. And there's actually a 20-minute course on getting started with Miro that's been launched. And so the last thing is if you have any suggestions of things that, like, we've just really touched the surface, like water skippers in this session. There's a tremendous amount of things that you can do with Miro, and very sophisticated product design teams use this, thinking about the customer journey, collaborations around the world. And so again, as chapter leaders, we'll be having to do an event at least once a quarter. So if you have any requests, or and we'd love to hear, like, was this helpful?
Sure. So you can use Miro in a browser like you're using right now. And there's a space like outside the board where all the boards are displayed. So that'll help. You can organize them into projects and such. There is also an app. I'm still not used to calling them that for like a Windows computer, but like a program that you can install. There might also be some for a different kind of computer if you operate one, but then it's like right there on your computer, and it also has like that navigation space of like you can see all your boards, choose which one you go into, all within that same app, and it has different tabs across the top for each board. So it's kind of like a browser with multiple tabs, but it's its own program. So you can use it either way.
And there's also a phone app.
It's an iPad app as well.
Yeah, and you can integrate this in like with many different applications. So we have it integrated with Microsoft Teams. And so when Rhonda or Josie go into one of the boards, it'll tell me that there's been a change. Or whenever I come into a board, it'll tell me what the changes are. And so if you're still looking at my screen through Zoom, I can click this little activity thing that's like a lightning rod. And so here's where it says Nancy edited a sticky note. This is where you guys photobombed me, right? All those drawings that were added. And then a sticky note. So it's actually, keeping track of all the activity on the board so that if you needed to go back to a prior state or something like that, it's actually recorded. And then you can kind of come in. And to me, that's a little, it's similar. One of the things I love about Slack is like when I go into Slack, it shows me what's new since the last time I was in there. The board can do the same thing for me. And if you have multiple people collaborating, it's really helpful to know what did they change, right? And to be able to go to that.